Boston Bruins brass held court on Wednesday. Here's what we learned.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. Today is Thursday, May 23rd, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Charlie Jacobs, Cam Neely, Don Sweeney, and Jim Montgomery all held court on Wednesday to take a look back at the centennial season and also take a look ahead to what we can expect during the offseason and heading into 2024-25. We're going to break it all down. First, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my dad jokes, hockey thoughts at Ian C. McLaren. Now, right out of the gate yesterday, Charlie Jacobs, team CEO, said they are not going to be making any changes at the management or coaching level. Very expected decision. You could argue this was one of Don Sweeney's finest seasons as GM after going all in and more in 2023-24. Had to navigate some tricky cap situations with those bonus overages, not a lot of space, filled in those roster spots very well. And the Bruins got further in the playoffs this year than they did last season. That's a testament as well to the work done by head coach Jim Montgomery and his staff. Now, I believe Montgomery was hired on a 3-year contract, meaning this is the final season. So he could be nearing a contract extension, or they want to see how he does moving forward this year before re-upping with the head coach. So there could be a lot of pressure on him to succeed this coming season. I mean, we all know the dreaded vote of confidence can come back and rear its ugly head. We saw a couple years ago, seemed like everything was fine. Then a couple of days later, Sweeney's knocking on Bruce Cassidy's door, and he is off to Vegas. But for the time being, no changes that way. And when it comes to this season, that just happened. Cam Neely, pretty honest in saying he's a little disappointed that the Bruins were still not playing. Don Sweeney saying, you could be bitterly disappointed that the Bruins didn't at least push that series against the Panthers to a Game 7. They had a great opportunity to do so, tied on home ice with a minute and a half left. But at the same time, Neely said he's excited about the offseason, excited about next season. Some areas of growth from players that they didn't expect this year, which is encouraging. So again, like I've been talking about all week long, there's disappointment mixed with some positives that the Bruins can take forward. Don Sweeney added, he gets a chance to be around the players. They're very receptive to handling a lot that was going on behind the scenes, a lot of change with this team this year. Some turmoil as well. You saw Milan Lucic come back to much fanfare last summer, and we know that fell apart and certainly had an effect on the players, especially those who have known him since his previous tenure with the team. Sweeney said they put a team together that was very competitive in the regular season. They fell short in the playoffs, and there are areas this summer that they need to address. We'll touch on that here later on in the podcast. Overall, he said he was very proud of the leadership. A bit of a passing of the torch, obviously, with Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci retiring, Brad Marchand getting the C, David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha kind of stepping up as that next core. And Sweeney says he's excited for the core group of guys as they continue to move forward and carry the franchise forward. Jim Montgomery added he's very grateful to be part of the Boston Bruins. Credited the three gentlemen at his side, Jacobs, Neely, Montgomery, their leadership, their vision, their commitment to excellence, and makes being part of the Bruins special. And when he's looking at next season, or when he's looking back, he echoed all the sentiments that they made. There's great potential for growth next season. You look at what this team accomplished with very little cap space. They were plugging holes with value contracts. James Van Riemsdyk, Kevin Shattenkirk, Danton Heinen, Parker Witherspoon, Jesper Boqvist. They got contributions from Justin Brazeau, Mason Lohrei stepped up, Matt Patra, showing that he is a nice piece to build on moving forward. There's a lot to be excited about with this team, with some flexibility to add and become even better in this offseason and as early as next season. So again, Montgomery's very excited about the potential for growth here, the experience that Marchand is going to have as a captain, make him a better leader next season, and all of what they went through in this centennial season should make them better. I can't understate again how important it was to win that series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's one thing to do good in the regular season and then flame out in the first round, but to be able to face that adversity of blowing the 3-1 series lead, having to face a game 7, getting that overtime win, and then getting those additional games against a very tough team in the Florida Panthers, it helps all those guys who appeared in those games and just brings them closer together. The deeper you get in the playoffs, the stronger the bonds become, the more you have to rely on your teammates. And there's a great opportunity ahead of the Bruins. Now, of course, one of the issues was a lack of scoring in the postseason. That was something that was lamented. And, it's difficult to be dominant offensively with the guys that exited the franchise, Don Sweeney said. Guys that retired, moved on, were traded. Now, the power play went dormant in the second round. They need to fix and address that. And they didn't get inside enough in rebound situations that they might have been able to take advantage of. Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, a bunch of guys were able to step forward. And then there was, in Don Sweeney's words, a cast of some misfits that was seen as being patched together. They didn't see it that way. A lot of guys stepped up, your Brazeaus, your Boqvists, all these guys that were given opportunities. But there are some specific needs they need to address, as well as some specific player situations that they need to take care of, namely Linus Ullmark, Jake DeBrusk, other free agents as well. And we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting Celtics playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices in the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. They have amazing last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. I love the view from your seat option. You can see exactly what to expect when you arrive at the Garden. And the lowest price guarantee means they'll credit you 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section in a row for less. It's not just playoff tickets either. Baseball, comedy, theater, music near you as well. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Game Time, last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which includes Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming YouTube channel with all the latest news, analysis, and opinions from all over the Locked On universe, free on YouTube and the Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, now one of the big priorities for the Bruins this offseason is signing Jeremy Swayman to a long-term contract extension. Sweeney said they've engaged in conversation during the regular season to begin defining what that might look like. They haven't gotten there yet, but it's a priority, and it will continue to be a priority until they can get that across the finish line. He's a big part of the team. He was the reason why they were in Game 6 of the second round of the playoffs. Big part of the future. The goaltending, one of the best tandems in the NHL. They proved that during the course of the regular season. They put them in a position most nights to have an opportunity to win. And the priority is going to be finding an extension, a number and term that works for both of the Bruins and for Jeremy Swayman. That, of course, all leads to a conversation about Linus Ullmark's future with the team. The Bruins have benefited from arguably the best tandem in the NHL, but that comes at a price. Linus Ullmark's contract is pretty nice for what he's been able to accomplish with the Bruins, winning a Vezina, giving the Bruins a chance to win night in and night out. $5 million per season, entering the last year of that contract. Jeremy Swayman, I mean, it's hard to predict exactly what the number will look like, but you can imagine it could be upwards of 7, 8. Is that unreasonable? So you're going to have 10, 12, 13 million tied up between two goaltenders, money that could be spent elsewhere. And Don Sweeney was pretty frank, saying he's not going to have conversations about a player in terms of what they're trying to do, but they're going to try to find a sweet spot with Jeremy Swayman. If they can make the math work, they're going to once again have the best tandem, but if they can't, they're going to explore. And for Linus, he may come and change his mind about maybe wanting a different opportunity. We all know there was the deal on the table for him to be sent to LA. He turned that down. In a perfect world, Sweeney said they can keep the tandem because he thinks it's damn good. And at the same time, they are going to explore opportunities. His phone's going to ring. There's going to be interest, of course. He's going to make calls as well. That's just what the job requires. And unfortunately, things leak out at times. That's the media's job, to piece things together. Sometimes they're wrong, but it doesn't stop the conversation from happening because we can all see the writing on the wall that this is a situation that's ripe for a potential trade. It's good for hockey, he said, in terms of drawing attention and eyes to it. So he gets it. He gets all the talk. But cutting through everything he said, they're going to explore trade opportunities. People are going to call, and he's going to make some calls as well. That's what the job requires. You have to look at every possible scenario. So Ullmark has the list of teams that he doesn't want to be traded to. He could come and change his mind and say, well, maybe I am open to going to LA in the offseason. It's an easier time to make that switch than in the middle of a season when you have a family back in Boston. So chances of Linus Ullmark being traded seem pretty good at this point. What about the chances of Jake DeBrusk returning? Well, Sweeney said negotiation is a two-way street. They took an aggressive position with Jake. I would assume that means in terms of term and a ceiling in terms of what they would offer him against the cap. No different than any other player that's chosen not to resign and explore. That's within his right, certainly at this time of year. So clearly the Bruins have made an offer. DeBrusk doesn't see that as true to his worth and has not signed that yet. And therefore, he's probably going to July 1st and see what else is out there, which is completely within his rights. He's earned that to this point in his career. Once you become an unrestricted free agent, you're free to explore your options. Hey, if you don't see anything out there, maybe you can come back and revisit this. There is a path to a new deal, Sweeney said. He told Jake that at their exit meetings. He's been a big part of the group. He's elevated his game in the playoffs. He would prefer to have Jake DeBrusk as part of the team, but Jake has the opportunity in front of him that he can pursue opportunities elsewhere. Sweeney knows the position they've taken. They feel comfortable. It did not get to the finish line. So again, clearly there was a deal on the table. Didn't meet up to DeBrusk's standards or his asking number, or perhaps not as much term as he wanted. He didn't sign it, and again, does not look great in terms of DeBrusk returning to the Boston Bruins, but perhaps they can find some common ground, or maybe DeBrusk feels the grass isn't greener on the other side come free agency. But I certainly think there will be a market for Jake DeBrusk. I know a lot of people saying, he's inconsistent. He hasn't earned a big time contract, maybe $5 million. He's going to command upwards of $6 million. And perhaps a team will come even higher than that just to secure his services. There's no need for him to take a hometown discount. He's earned that. And any inconsistencies or deficiencies that pop up in his offensive game, I think he makes up for defensively. He's become a very strong two-way forward, kills penalties, plays late situations, and brings a speed factor to the table that the Bruins apparently are looking to add. So if you're wanting to add speed, but also willing to allow Jake DeBrusk to walk, doesn't really add up to me. But we'll discuss more about what the Bruins might do in free agency and what needs they'll be looking to address in the offseason here as the podcast continues. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed. And that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Quite simple. Indeed's the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a powerful hiring tool that brings you matched candidates. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment you sponsor a job. Starting right now, you can get a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. The offer is good for a limited time, so jump on it now. Claim your $75 credit at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply, but if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Now, when it comes to free agency, Don Sweeney said the Bruins are going to be aggressive to be able to complement what they currently have in some areas. The team played hard. They're looking to add team speed and create more anxiety on the forecheck in some situations. You look at what teams that are still playing and what they do well. That's one of the things, that aggressive forecheck caused by speed that creates anxiety for the opposition. Now, the teams that are playing are damn good. Sweeney said they earned the right to be there. The Bruins didn't. It's hard to get in. It's hard to continue to win. And they're going to look for the players that are confident will push them forward. To Cam Neely reiterated that as well. He and Don have had some conversations since the season ended. They talk every day during the season about how they want the team to play. Obviously, today's game is fast. They're not as fast as they would like to be. Some of that had to do with last offseason. They were hamstrung, obviously. The pro scouting staff did a really good job, built a team that competed. A smart team, low volume shot team, but high danger chance team. There's areas that they still need to improve, and getting faster, winning more of those 50-50 puck battles. That's an area that they want to have the puck more than the other team. Now, it's interesting that they could be willing to allow Jake DeBrusk to walk while also wanting to add to the core and add some speed. If you let him walk, you have to fill his spot. So you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball already, and you're losing one of those speed roles that you're looking to fill. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, apart from the fact that they can use the cap space that they would have set aside for DeBrusk elsewhere, and hopefully add a player of equal or better value. There's going to be a ton of free agents out there available, and the Bruins are going to be aggressive. You have to expect they'll add a scoring winger. I mean, again, it would be nice to add a scoring winger to the group they already have. That would include Jake DeBrusk. But if you're subtracting DeBrusk, then that's potentially 2 scoring wingers that you need to go out and add. Do they prioritize the center position? You do have Charlie Coyle, Pavel Zacha, Morgan Geekie, Matt Poitras. They identified as a guy who will come back fully healthy and able to compete for a spot down the middle. He has to come back and earn his spot like all the young players, Sweeney said, but they're going to pencil him in as a core group moving forward. But again, they're going to be aggressive to be able to complement what they currently have. Whether or not that includes Jake DeBrusk will just add to their shopping list. They talked about Pat Maroon, a guy who was really instrumental for that second or third voice on the bench. He has an important role in a lot of aspects for this team. Health will probably be paramount thing that they factor in with Pat moving forward. I mean, again, if you're wanting to add speed, subtracting DeBrusk and adding Maroon or bringing Maroon in isn't necessarily the way to go. But what can you do? That's just where they're at this point. Nobody needs surgery, they said. There will not be any changes to the coaching staff. And they're going to look at everybody internally and all their external options in order to improve this team. Now, they were asked about not being able to win games at home in recent years. That's something that is true across the league. And sometimes you put a little too much pressure on yourself to perform your best at home. A really odd thing to have that, 6-game losing streak to the Panthers at home. One thing they did mention as well is that Brad Marchand is due a contract extension. And Sweeney said he is going to be a lifelong Bruin for sure. He's learning how to be the best captain he can be, learning patience as a captain as well. There's some ducks in a row in terms of adding to the group and that they need to attend to first. But eventually he will be extended. He'll be a lifelong Bruin, and they're going to check that box, but they have to take care of some other roles and needs ahead of that, basically is what he's saying. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Boston Bruins. Ullmark trade very much on the table. DeBrusk's future very uncertain. but they are going to add to this group, so we can expect some high-quality free agents to be pursued and hopefully signed here by the Boston Bruins this summer. That's it for what we learned from the Bruins brass. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. I hope you're all doing well, taking care of yourselves and each other. Don't forget to check out Locked On Sports Today and subscribe to this if you have not already. Be back tomorrow to bring you all the latest on the black and gold here on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.